Yes, hello, and welcome to Release the Creative, your favorite show about creativity, cognition, and today, reframe your mind.
It sounds spooky.
Let's kill the music.
Oh yes, let's see. We got new stuff going on.
We got new stuff going on. Lots of moving pieces today. So actually, whereas this will look very, very similar to anyone who's watched the podcast before, there's everything behind the camera is new. Not new cameras per se, nor new, but we have gutted the old system and re-put it together. So please stay with us today as we are potentially having a few. I don't foresee hiccups.
So this is actually long coming since COVID started. Meaning what, 17 months ago?
Yeah.
We kind of started. We had a bunch of time, obviously, and we started poking at things and pulling strings. And the more you pull at strings, the more things unravel. And by, I'd say, last August, a year ago, we're like, okay, let's do this right. And I have spent between August and about an hour ago kind of reforming the system.
Yeah.
And it's still, what we have right now is the system's rebuilt, but it's on the floor.
Now, my question for you is, so I'm hearing the show about 15 seconds behind us in my ear, very silent. Is that because there's a window open somewhere, or is that actually going into the stream? See, again, guys, stick with us, because today's a really good one. We have a lot of cool things to talk about, but we're testing. We're doing this live on LinkedIn, so if you are on LinkedIn, we're doing this live on YouTube, so if you are on YouTube, if you have questions, throw them out. We are going to be launching kind of this new paradigm where we're doing this live, as a lot of our clients are starting to do live webinars, live events, just a lot of in our post/concurrently COVID world, there's a lot of new requirements, and people are needing to be all over the world at once. More workers are doing remote work, and there's a lot of things going on that have moved into this live element. There's a lot of over-the-counter products that make it really, really simple, but they're all very, very limited, and we don't like limitations. So we've kind of built our own system that'll allow us to do some really cool things. And so now we're just kind of testing that today, and you guys get to be our guinea pigs on LinkedIn, YouTube, and 2 of our Facebook pages. It's super silent. It's super quiet.
Yeah. So, no, it's in there, but it's very quiet. So that's going to be my first troubleshooting. I don't think it's hopefully not too distracting to people. I'm going to poke at this here. Why don't I poke at that while you kind of tell me what we want to talk about today?
So, have you ever framed anything? And I don't mean gone to Office Depot or Staples or Hobby Lobby or Michael's and bought a frame and threw your picture on it.
Eliminated my options, so no, I've never framed anything.
I mean, have you ever gone to the framing counter and left something there for them overnight?
Okay, yes, I've done that.
Okay, how did that process go?
Well, you take your art,
yep,
and you give it to them and say, tell me what to do. That's kind of how I do
it.
Right,
and so you pick your mat, you pick your frame,
yeah,
and you pick it. So why do that? What is, and I'm obviously being a little pedantic and a little bit elementary, and my question is, whatever you just did made it go away.
It went away. Yeah, I found the problem.
Cool.
This is a kind of a leaving the parking brake on sort of situation.
Awesome. It happens. So why do that? Why not? I mean, you can order frames off Amazon for cheap. You order them, you throw them in, you throw them on the wall. Why go and have something framed?
Beyond the things that are physically large. I mean, this is where the brick and mortars have a big advantage. I will buy all kinds of small things off the internet, but when it comes to once it gets to handheld size, I'm like, I don't want to ship this. It seems complicated. I don't know how to pack it up. And I know FedEx is like, we'll ship anything. It's like, yeah, but I don't want to figure it out. So to me, that's the this has surpassed the size where I want to deal with it. But also there is anything to do with aesthetics or anything like that. Being with the person and going over it with them, there's a lot to be said for that. It's like this person has technical skills, or they're an artist, or maybe both,
right? And
to show them the thing and get their advice and point at it, and that's kind of the equivalent of having something custom tailored. It's like, I'll buy socks off the internet, but not a suit off the internet.
I've bought a suit off the internet, but I'm not as well dressed as you. Now let's go one step more. Again, guys, everything here today is an analogy. I'm not trying to be super pedantic here, but why frame things at all? Why not just college dorm it, thumbtacks, ticky tack, just nail straight through the art onto the wall? Why frame it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm going to answer that question in a very big way.
Sure.
Sometimes I go to places that are just nicer, and I like to sit and think, or like look and be like, why? Why is Disney World better than other theme parks? I don't mean the rides, I mean like the restaurants.
Because the rides are not as good as other restaurants.
Yeah, but just when you're like in the gift shop at Disney World,
right,
it's nicer, and the food court at a nice mall is different than the food court at a not so nice mall.
I mean, to put that out of Disney, Target is just nicer than Walmart, but
yeah,
why?
And one of the this is really off tangent here. One of the things I've noticed that I only know about because my father, as one of his clients, did this work.
Okay.
It's something I don't think people even realize is drywall molding. You know drywall, what it is. Like
yeah,
it's
paper and dust.
And dust, and you put it on the wall. There are companies that, like, if you go into a doctor's office and there's just a drop ceiling, you're like, okay. If you go into a doctor's office and over the receptionist, there's a big round thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's like it's like
a drop ceiling a little bit.
It's not. It's like the ceiling's very high, and then there's a big round thing that's painted the same color as the walls, and you don't think about it. You don't notice it. But what that is that's formed drywall. They build a aluminum structure, and they curve the drywall, and they put rounded edges on it, and they put lights in it, and they'll put like a weird shape on the ceiling, and that's one of many things that gives a space sense of feeling. But I like that one because it's something that most people don't think about or notice, and that's a thing. That's an art.
Right.
And so same thing. That's why it's a smaller scale, but that's why you would frame something, is it gives it that extra attention.
Absolutely. So for those who don't know, and I didn't know I was going to be saying this today, so amongst many of my side hustles and things, I'm also an occasional lecturer at Georgetown on visual storytelling. And one of the things I teach the students, like literally day one, is like the rule of thirds and the golden ratio and visual guides. How if you have someone looking off frame, that is going to take your audience, they're going to take their eyes off frame.
Right.
What you've just described is a very real world framing. It's very real world. As you come in, it directs the eye back down to the receptionist. So you feel, again, people aren't stupid. They're going to walk in, they're going to see a receptionist, but it makes that cognitive process of seeing the receptionist and understanding where you're supposed to go, it makes it a more pleasant one. It eliminates a bunch of cognitive dissonance. It eliminates a lot of unease by putting a person in this particular case in a very solid frame. So back to the more macro of frames really, really set the tone. If I take a famous piece of art and I put it in one of those plastic clip-on frames, it doesn't make the art ugly, but it doesn't do anything for it. If I take it and put it in one of these museum quality frames, it helps. If I then throw some matting onto it or double matting, or there's a whole, as you said, art form to framing things to make the art look better. Now, the artist, I understand that what I'm about to say is not entirely true. The artist didn't necessarily intend the frame. The artist painted the picture.
The picture, yeah.
They're not frame shops. Their job isn't to frame the art. Yes, it is.
Well, it's like how the movie theater has such a impact on how you view a movie.
Absolutely.
Which is why people like James Cameron and Christopher Nolan really care what's going on in the movie theater.
Right, absolutely. And there's so much to frame of mind, and there's so much to presence of mind, and all of that is around the very literal frame, and that is true of so much more than we think. It is true of, as I love your reception one. I didn't know that example could not be more perfect. You walk in, and if you walk in and there's some highlights magazines on a coffee table and some folding chairs around the corner and a person sitting in the corner with a computer, you understand that's the person I go see to. But if all of a sudden they're at a window or they're at a desk and there's a light over their head, and it is a visual mental introduction. Now is when I switch it from physical frames and we start talking about mental frames exist, whether or not we're talking about physical ones. And so we hear a lot in the marketing space, or if you own a small business, or if you've read any blogs, or you've read any business 101 books, they talk about your brand position. And your brand position is rad. It's awesome. It's wonderful. Brand positioning is incredible, and I do brand positioning exercises with my clients. So this is not like a screw brand positioning.
Right.
But brand positioning often acts a little bit like a Mad Libs. It's like my company is the best at blank for people who blank in the market of blank for the purpose of blank. And you're like, okay.
Got it.
And now for clarity of mind, for clarity of your client, for clarity of you as a business owner, that's awesome. It's like, oh, Here's the problem. If you extend that brand positioning into your messaging, then every brand does the exact same thing. And I mean, yeah, those adjectives change and those names change, and that is not worthless, but it's really a good exercise for you and your brand position. But a lot of people take that brand's position and they roll it straight into their messaging. And now your messaging sounds very generic, it sounds very blasé, and it disappears into everyone else saying the exact same thing.
So yeah, you're saying like if it's a Mad Lib, where do you get to the point that your business is different from your competitor's business?
Right. So examples, check your links, check the on YouTube specifically. I'm going to be throwing a lot of links to blogs. I want to credit the artists and the authors that I am using today. I don't have their names right in front of me, but I did read a lot of blogs and have a lot of these examples. And I want the people that wrote some of this stuff to get credit for finding better examples than I could think of on my own. So please, in the YouTube links specifically, in the YouTube comments, you'll see links to some blogs that do a much more thorough job on each of these examples. But one of my favorites that I came across was, the thing about framing is that if you do not provide your audience with a frame, they're going to put you in the frame where they think you belong, and that is the last place you want to be. So you and I both eat, or at least in college ate a lot of garbage microwave pizza.
Yes.
I'm gonna pretend like that stopped. We're adults now. We don't do that anymore.
I have moved on to pizza bagels, which is a step up in the food chain.
Is it?
It is. It really is.
Okay. So, you know, it's 2002 when we were coming out of college, and you walk in and you see all these, you see the Tostino's Crisp and Tasties, you see the Red Barons, and you see all of them. What is a you know, to date all the way to the, what does a microwave pizza cost, or a toaster pizza?
I mean, yeah, even these days, like $1.50.
Yeah, like $1 to $5. What does a DiGiorno cost?
I don't know, like they're like $9.
Yeah, they're 8 to 11 depending on where you are. And so all of a sudden you have DiGiorno, and they're trying to make a take home pizza, and all of a sudden they know where in the store it's going to be put. They have no say over that. They have no say over where. They have very little say. Most small businesses have zero say on that. So all of a sudden you know they're going to see $1, $3, $2, $4, $5, gluten-free, $6, DiGiorno, $8.99. And in a world where they're fighting for the best microwave pizza, the best take-home, the best oven-baked pizza, they're going to get slaughtered in that. But they made sure that didn't happen by they reframed their brand. What's DiGiorno's tagline?
It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno.
They don't want you comparing them to Tostino's Crisp and Tasties, which were amazing till the botulism recall. They don't exist anymore. They were my favorite. It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno. Because now if you're comparing a $15 Papa John's to an $8, that's a bargain.
And here's where you have a bit of control to a point.
Right.
But you still can't, that last mile. I remember as a child not understanding that slogan.
Right.
Because to me, delivery and grocery, like every form of pizza was great. And so when they're like, it's not delivery, it's DiGiorno, to me, I took that as like, okay, so what's your point?
Right.
Which other people might have taken away their intended message, but I grew up not understanding that.
Well, and that's the other thing that's really, thank you for this is a little off topic today, but I want to touch on it really fast, is that if you try to speak to all people at all times, you're speaking to no one ever. You're just we are the best at this and this and this, and we're the, like, if you try to talk to everyone, they weren't talking to you.
Yeah, they really weren't.
They were talking to the mother or father that was shopping, and they knew that Friday night after the game, their 14-year-old son was going to bring home his 13 friends, and they were going to say, "Mom, Dad, can we order pizza?" And they'll be like, "Good God, 13 people, 6 pizzas, $15. You know what?
Yeah.
I'm going to buy some DiGiorno. They're gonna love it. They're you. They won't know the difference. They won't. They know that last time when they gave everyone Tostina's pizza rolls, they were like, "Mom, I wanted pizza." So now by making it DiGiorno, they were able to raise the quality. And again, this is not an advertisement for DiGiorno. For the record, they've never been like my super favorite. The other one who did a very similar thing was Boboli, where they sold the shrink-wrapped pizza crusts that you could then dress yourself, and again, way more expensive than freezer pizza, but way cheaper. And so they framed themselves as better than delivery. not better than the other microwave pizzas.
Right.
They changed their frame. They decided that they were not going to compete with, I mean, they're still competing. You don't get much say in that. But the other one that is my favorite that I use with a lot of my clients is that Lyft and Uber do not share a frame according to them at all. They are not competitors according to them at all. Uber is a logistics company. They'll bring you your food. They'll bring you to work. They'll bring you home from work. They'll get you there. They're trying to take on FedEx, UPS, taxi services. They are a point-to-point logistics company, whereas Lyft is a community ride-sharing program that is about cleaning up the world and growing your local community. That is not the same thing. And from a user standpoint, I need to get there. Uber is $4, Lyft is $3. Man. But if Uber can then say, hey, we handle everything, go with us and join the Uber membership, we'll save you over this. Now, all of a sudden, it's this user experience of point-to-point logistics. Or I can go, you know what? Uber controversies aside, Lyft is about community and taking cars off the road. That frame adds social good, it adds emotional resonance, and it puts it into, I use Lyft for a reason now that is not Uber, or I use Uber for a reason that has nothing to do with product offering. It's a microwave pizza. It has everything to do with how they have framed what that offering is. And people that use Lyft, again, I'm speaking very specifically to niches, people who use Lyft intentionally very much for a reason. And people that use Uber for a reason use Uber. Yes, there's tons of people, myself included, that just like, it's the app I saw first.
Doesn't matter, yeah.
And that's an important, and that is not just marketing. And people are, well, yeah, that's just marketing. That is cognition. That is, if I can set your frame for you, I can determine what you compare me to. If I can set the frame separately, I can convince you, and this sounds malevolent or malicious, and it's not, I can make my competitor not better or worse. I can make you realize that my competitor is not my competitor. My competitor, oh, they do this other thing. If you want that other thing, sure, go with them. The reason you go with us is, and it's not marketing, it's not we're cheaper, it's not we're faster, it's not we're better, it's we're different. We are in a different category. Can you think of any examples of things like that?
I was trying to think of brands, but what actually came to mind was an article in the Washington Post. This is about 15 years ago.
Sure.
And this is one of those stories that like people who I run into people who are like, oh yeah, of course everyone knows that, and other people are like, I've never heard of that before. Sure. It's like if this interests you, you've heard of it already. But what it was a columnist named Gene Weingarten. Okay. He took one of the world's best. I think he was a violinist or a viola. I don't know if it was viola or violin.
I heard about that. Yeah.
I don't know which instrument it was, but
I think it was a violinist.
And he was in town to play at the Kennedy Center. He's
sure.
like best in the world. He has like $1 million instrument. And the day before his concert, Gene took him down to the metro station and where the escalators are coming up and just had him play. And he like videotaped it for like an hour. And some people every now and then would stop and like, oh, okay, and then but no crowd ever gathered. He's like, this is a guy that we would have to spend big bucks on to get into the Kennedy Center to see his premiere performance. He's the best in the world, and most people are just going to work, and nobody stops and listens. And he wrote a whole article about it. And at first, the pitch is, oh well, we're too hurried into our modern life. We're all in the rat race, and we don't appreciate beauty, and we have horse blinders on.
Sure.
But I think eventually he got around to the point that you're making, which is it's not fair to criticize people for passing up on this amazing opportunity. It's not that they have horse blinders on and don't see the world. It's that when you come up out of the metro, you expect somebody to just be playing an instrument, and sure enough, there it is.
Right.
And you get on with your life. And that's not that that's a flaw in that person. It's that's how we process the world, is we're looking for frames. We're looking for the next frame. Where am I going? Metro station, music player, makes sense. Okay, taxi, okay, work, okay, and you're just,
We're doing an entire podcast about that next week because there's about 7 different really awesome elements going on there.
Yeah,
this is absolutely one of them.
There's a video and an article, so next week we'll dig into that.
We're absolutely digging into that next week. Check the comments for links because we're going to share that because there's a bunch of different things about channel matters, mind frame matters. There's a lot about there, but I want to stick on framing.
Yeah.
The other way that framing starts to work is when you start, like I mentioned earlier, when you take that Mad Libs of your brand position and you start rolling it directly into your messaging, you can really start to lose people because it sounds too similar, or because you are choosing the right attribute, the wrong frame. So let's use the F-150.
Okay.
The F-150 is
a truck.
Yes, it's also the most American vehicle. This was true in 2018. I don't know if it's so. It is the most American vehicle, more than the 250 or the 350.
But
as far as
you define that as it's sold here and nowhere else, or
no, as in the most pieces, like very few doodads and dongles, and it is
most made in America.
It is made in America. Like the 250 and 350. Oh well, it has to have this piece brought in from Asia.
Right.
No, the Ford F-150 is the most American vehicle, more than any other Dodge, Toyota, American car. It imports the fewest number of pieces, the fewest elements. It has 22. I'm not talking about the electric. I'm talking about the just traditional F-150. It gets 22 miles per gallon. Now, over the last decade, we've been seeing more and more people harping and really emphasizing on global warming and fuel economy. And so they did 2 different ads, and one was with a combined 22 miles per gallon. For the record, that's good for a truck.
Yeah.
However, compared to a bunch of mid-size SUVs, compared to some Jeeps, compared to a couple of other
not so great.
Crossovers, it wasn't. You can get like the RAV4. I'm not trying to compare those two. You can get a couple of mid-size like SUVs and crossovers that get like 28. So that's not actually great. So they changed their frame from with a combined 22 miles per gallon, or they didn't change. They ran both. And they found the other one was with a best-in-class fuel economy. Oh, well, now I have to get the Ford F-150 over the Toyota Tacoma or the other things in that, because instead of saying 22 miles with a combined 22 miles per gallon, you have set your frame as fuel economy. And as a truck, no matter what your truck is, you're going to get destroyed in that.
Yeah.
But when you say best-in-class fuel economy, now all of a sudden you're like, you have just absolutely eliminated everyone that does better because you've said, yes, they're different. Absolutely, you can do better. Go get yourself a Volkswagen Bug, and it'll have a better fuel economy. But by saying best in class, you have now cognitively framed out anyone. And even if people don't quite understand why it's different, they now go, well, they're best in class. Why are these better? What class are they in? What is the... And again, a lot of this is in the limbic system. A lot of this is not in the rational mind. This is not something people sit and ponder on. But when you start saying things like best in class, which is why most of them do that now, you can eliminate the frame that puts you against people you don't want to be. You don't want to be compared to a crossover and SUV because they do better. You need to eliminate those. Those are a different class. So say that. By setting your framing, you can eliminate competitors that you don't want to be competing against.
So in some ways, framing is focusing, but in other ways, it's excluding things.
It's far more about exclusion because again, back to the art thing. Anyone who's watched any of my podcasts over the last few years knows that often I am standing in front of or sitting in front of a wall full of art, and if those weren't framed pictures, they would just be art right up next to each other. There might be some margins. Frames help isolate an image and stop the eye from wandering. They help isolate and encapsulate an image. They help your brain see that scene as an isolated thing. Framing your brand is not about marketing. It's used in marketing. It's not about messaging. It helps you with your messaging. It's far more about the exclusion of the noise around it. By framing your brand, by helping that story, it's not about saying necessarily what you are or what you aren't. It's far more about saying how you are different and how you are to the exclusion of the noise around you.
Is this the same as, I think these are 2 things. You've always talked about you wouldn't sell cell phones at the Renaissance Festival.
No, you would not.
That sounds related to framing, but that's a different concept.
That is a different concept. And we'll talk a lot of that. that it's that. So that's, and again, we can talk a little bit about this because it relates, but that has to do with user journey, and that is that, and this talks greatly to your Subway example. If someone is in a particular mind frame, and you try to insert yourself into that mind frame, that is going to not go well for you.
It's short circuits.
I mean, 1 in 1,000 times they'll catch you, they'll see you, they'll be like, oh man, I need to be doing X, Y, or Z. But if someone is in the, I am going to work, I need to get to work, it's just like when you're walking down the street and someone jumps in front of you and says, excuse me, sir, do you have a moment to sign a petition for whatever? And you're like,
there's a
no, I don't.
episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine where it's a comedy cop show.
Sure.
Those who haven't seen it, the lead character is doing a stakeout, and he needs to like watch some business without being seen, and so he puts on like a green shirt with a bunch of writing on it, and he stands on the corner and he's like, save the environment, save the environment, save the, and nobody looks at him. He just stands there all day watching the
No, I was actually just talking to someone about this the other day. This is no longer true because people like me know it. Back in the 70s and 80s, one of the most commonly used stakeout tactics by the CIA was a prospecting crew, because a man in a high-vis jumpsuit with a tripod and weird gear, walking around in a hard hat, you just ignore that.
Yeah,
it's I have somewhere to be, I have something to do. And if something exists outside of your frame of reference, I need to express how much I don't mean this as a metaphor. Your brain deletes it. Your brain ignores it entirely. Now, from a marketing standpoint, that's bad. I've got to figure out a way to get to penetrate that frame, and that is true. You do have to figure out a way to get someone's attention. But if you penetrate the frame in the wrong time in the moment, if you went to your daughter's, if an insurance salesman went to your daughter's dance recital and was like, "Hey, I need to talk to you about your extended warranty," like, dude, so not the time. So not the place.
It's interesting, how fine that line is.
Right.
You just said that like the CIA dressed as like a road crew or something because people ignore them. Yeah. I specifically have read photography books that say if you're going to be a photographer's assistant and you're going to be shooting outdoors, you should wear a hard hat, carry a clipboard, and a walkie-talkie. Right. Because like if the guy's setting up the shot and he's taking a picture of a building and a car pulls right in front of the door and you need it to move, if you hold a clipboard and with a walkie-talkie and you say, move that car, move it, they'll move. No.
So believe it or not,
the flip side
it's
of what
not
you just
the
said.
exact same. Actually, they're still ignoring you. It's not they're going to hit you. It's that they do not question your presence. They do not question your authority. They know that you are outside of their frame. If you step in and say, "Excuse me," here's a perfect example of us doing this. Us at Glass River Media. Mm-hmm. So 2 years, 2018. 19, one of the two. We went both years. 2019 is the second year. Corey, Nathan, and I went to Dragon Con, and we brought this whole setup. The entire setup that allows you to see what we're doing here was like, if this is Mark 8, that was Mark 2. Yeah. We brought all of it down. We called it Project Bobbert. There's a long story there. And we figured we wanted to do a live presentation of the parade. Right. Outdoors. So we figured out some switchery to turn very little money into a Corey and I in a studio going live on the streets to Nathan, and we figured out a way that we could do that with wireless technology, and we can still do that. Call us. And we sent Nathan down. Nathan weighs like 105 pounds soaking wet. He's 5'9", 5'8". He's a very shrimpy. He was probably 19, 20 at the time. Very small guy. He's not imposing. He's not anything. But we put a vest on him, not a high-vis vest, but a photographer vest. Mm-hmm. We gave him our nicer camera with our bigger tripod, and we set him out there ahead of time. And very quickly, we were not there affiliated in any way. We did not have credentials. Well, we had guest credentials. We were nothing special. The cops made a roadblock for Nathan. The cops took Nathan, like, they saw him. He looked official. He was there. He had an earwig in because he was talking to me. Yeah. All of a sudden, the police, the actual authorities across the street, there was this cordoned off area of all these photographers in this area, thing like that, But Nathan wasn't over there with them. And you'd think, well, clearly that means he's not supposed to be there. The police came and moved the crowd for him, pulled him out into the street, gave him an area, and said, and it's that same thing. It's that people kind of ignore you. They just, people will give you the power they assume you already have. And that is framing. It's where that, so that high-vis vest, it's about you've given them a frame that they instantly know who you are. No, they don't. They put you in a context.
They see the frame and then it's empty on the inside, but it doesn't matter.
They give you the context that you need, and they're like, oh, this person is in charge of something. He's wearing a high-vis vest. That must mean something. So much so that the police in charge of controlling the environment let him behind the ropes and gave him his own special perch to give us the best footage ever. Dragon Con's footage of Dragon Con's a parade was not as good as ours because we just showed up and acted like we were supposed to be there. I'm sorry, Dragon Con, which is 2 weeks from now. It's that whole framing thing. Where it starts to be problematic is when you try to violate someone's frame, when you try to like take someone's frame of mind or how they're positioning a situation or you in that. If Nathan had gone up to the police officer and like, excuse me, and like started like, that wouldn't have gone well at all, because now you are taking yourself and
who are you?
Who are you? You're now forcing questions. When you can place a frame that someone thinks they know the answers and you don't have to provide them with honest or dishonest information, you can just be like, this is what I'm doing. People will tend to, like you said with the photographer, they'll move the car because they've put you in a frame that you exist. This can work for all negotiations. This can work for all of marketing. This can work for all of interpersonal communications. This works in, because this isn't marketing. This isn't communications. This is just straight heuristics. We can talk about that. We talked about that in a couple months ago on this podcast, what a heuristic is. This is straight cognition. People need to encapsulate and frame the information. If something exists outside of that frame, they ignore it entirely. If something enters that frame and they can contextualize it, and like your example, if someone steps in a different, they're like, oh, they can instantly go, I can make that make sense here. It's when you start to say, it's when the joke that I tell all my clients is, if you ever go to the Renaissance Festival, everyone, 50, 60, 70% of the people at Renaissance Festival have an iPhone. But there is not the ye olde Apple shop on the main street, because that would be very uncomfortable for people. That would violate the frame. It would be like, this...
It's an extreme example.
This doesn't belong here. Polished glass and backlit signs. Like, I don't care that in my Sporin I have an iPhone and I have to take a work call today. I'm going to have to step behind the turkey leg booth and take that call. That's on my frame. But if you present me with something that exists outside of my accepted reality, it's bad. The other one here that is a little off topic, but I want to talk about really fast, is it's why, and the brain does this very, very quickly, which is why you'll be scrolling on Facebook. The physical action, very simple. Grandma, kid, cat, politics, grandma, kid, cat. That's it. You then go and take your finger and you clicked on the tab that says LinkedIn, and now it's your boss, your coworker, your old college, colleague, these entrepreneurs you follow. If all of a sudden this happens, you see it happen, especially about a year and a half ago, just pre-COVID. If you posted a cat meme on LinkedIn, it got people angry.
Yeah.
They were like, this isn't Facebook. Keep that off of here. I'm here to network. I am here to... It's the same physical action. It's a wall made of blue and white. It's the same. It is the same in way more ways than it is different. This is a little bit more about channel strategy than framing at the moment, but I just want to talk about, it's all the same cognitive process of you have to frame something within the method that someone is prepared to receive it, which is why your messaging on LinkedIn needs to be different than your messaging on Facebook. You're the same company, their user experience is the same, they're sitting in the same chair at the same desk in the same house, but by choosing LinkedIn over choosing Facebook, they've made a cognitive choice of the frame they want to be in,
right?
And you need to be speaking to that. It can be a really fun role, by the way. It's one of my favorite things. Channel strategy is one of my absolute favorites. But sticking more to just strict framing for a second, there's a lot of different... So Georgetown had a set of frames that were like, these are the frames. I didn't like half of them. This one blog that I've read today is by a man named Colin Finkel. It was written in August of 2019. He says there's 5. I don't agree with all of these either, but I think these are some pretty good ones. As far as messaging and marketing frames, First, we have gain frames, where this product will get you something. That's fairly straightforward. Then there are loss frames. This product will keep you from losing something.
Do this or.
And what's really interesting is Chris Voss wrote a book called Never Split the Difference, and I absolutely love it. And Carmen Simon wrote a book called Impossible to Ignore. And both of them talk about this principle that I think is just so fascinating from a cognition standpoint. And that is that people will work harder, drive longer, and spend more to not lose anything than they will to gain something. If you say, hey, drive across town for a free, we are giving away $100 bills across town, lots of people won't come. They're like, it'll cost me more.
My favorite is the gas prices.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, it's like this one's 5 cents cheaper. And it's like, you do the math. It's like, okay, that's like 58 cents. And so like if you ran an ad that was like, this gas station 5 cents cheaper, it'd be like, I'm going there.
Right.
And it's like, hey, come over here, I'll give you 2 quarters.
Right.
No one's going to show up.
They actually did a thing where they were like, they offered people free money at this Best Buy. Like, hey, there is a gift card available at this Best Buy, $25 gift card, and it had very few people show up. They then offered a TV with $25 off. One was a free gift card. You had to spend nothing. You just come and claim it. And the other one was come spend $500 on a TV and we'll give you 20. And tons of people came to save $25, where not many people came for a free $25. And that is absolutely bananas.
But the guy that do you know is the guy that developed the real world Apple stores, Johnson? Is it Ron Johnson or somebody Johnson?
I don't remember his name, but yeah, sure.
Yeah, anyway, he developed it. The Apple stores are like the most successful retail store locations of all time. Like, they made the most money per square foot, anything in the mall. He left Apple to become CEO of JCPenney's.
Oh, yeah.
And
this is great.
He came to it with a very technology-minded view, which appeals to people like you and me, which
Absolutely.
he said every week at this department store, it's like we raise the prices just to lower them, and it's all fake sales, and you never know, and it's confusing, and the coupon for this, and you bring this coupon for that, and it's just, he's like, let's just give the very best price we can. We're going to be across the board. We're going to price match. We're going to beat everyone, and when you come to JCPenney's, you're always going to have the best price, and that's going to be that.
Yep.
And sales tanked, and he got fired a year later, and they had to come back and be like, I'm sorry, 40% off after we raised the price 50 cents. But like raising the prices and putting a discount appeals to people, and just saying it's the cheapest was not appealing. Yeah.
People love the bargain. Like, so I've been shopping art a lot recently for reasons, stay tuned, we'll be talking about. And I have found a couple of different websites now that's really funny that I've visited them every day over the course of the last few weeks as I've been checking things, and it changes by about 5% up and down, but every day there's like, today only 25% off, today only 30% off, today only 15% off. And so what I've learned is their normal price is never accurate.
Yeah.
Ever. But there's been a couple times like, dang it, yesterday was 15, today it's 30. Like yesterday was 35, today it's 15. Shoot. But like
you add it to the cart, and the next day they email you a different coupon.
Right.
Like,
I mean, there are people that will jump to save $5, and those exact same people are not going to walk across the street to gain $5. That exact same concept. I remember a few years ago, we were doing particularly well, and we were doing things were booming here, and I was always busy and always crazy, and I was driving. And another thing, if this ad was not talking to me, there was this ad saying, "Did you know you could gain as many as $300? You could earn as much as $300 a week driving for Uber." And I was like, I would pay $300 a weekend. You could gain $300 in a weekend driving for Uber. And I was like, I would pay $300 in a weekend to not have to drive other people around. Like I would pay that. Again, I wasn't their audience by any means, but that is a cognitive, that is measurable, and they've seen it over and over. If you say, hey, cross these 3 busy streets to stand in line to get a free $5 bill, very few people will come. If you say, hey, this is now $5 off, people will. And people will do way more to keep from losing something than they will for gaining it. And that's an important frame to understand. Your client, what are they afraid of losing? Is it money? Is it time? If you say, if you're advertising what you add to the equation, that's not a big thing. And you've heard me say this to everyone who's called here trying to sell something. I've said, look, I need someone to take something off of my desk, not give me a new tool to fix my problem.
Right.
I don't need you to sell me something that will fix my problem. I need you to take something away from me. Like, I want you to save me time. I want you to save me energy. And yes, your tool does that, but I have to learn how to do it, and I have to do it. Right now, my system works for me. No, it doesn't. But so this framing becomes really, really important of knowing what is the problem your people are trying to solve. So that was gains and losses. Let me do the other three. Temporal frames. Most people choose immediate, smaller rewards over a long period of time. They discount rewards in the future. So this is
the marshmallow test.
The marshmallow test, but also, or the celery test, as we sometimes call it, the Join Our Rewards program. It's free to join. It saves you nothing today, but every $100 you spend, we'll send you a gift card. As you show us loyalty, as you come back here, which is Uber, back to the Uber and Lyft. Uber has Uber Eats, and join the Uber Club, and for $15 a month to Uber Club, you save on all Uber experiences. Hey, by the way, we're expanding Uber. By sticking with Uber, yes, it's more expensive, but we'll give you that money back. And if you do the math, no, they won't. But these temporal frames of longevity and sticking with us will pay off in the long run. We're your guy. That tends to really, really resonate with people. Value frame. This one is the people that really are your JCPenney guy whose name we can't remember.
Yeah.
He's a value frame. It's just like, we are the best value on the market 100% of the time. Aldi and Lidl both have very similar ads that say something like, we don't price match because we would have to raise our prices. Like, don't come to us and ask us to lower our prices. We offer you the lowest price we possibly could all the time. If they're doing it cheaper, go with them. Like, that's a value frame. You will never, ever, ever wonder if they could go cheaper because they're telling you up front that they couldn't.
Yeah.
And for the most part, both Aldi and Lidl are rad. I love them.
I mean, that works for groceries. It doesn't work for department stores.
It doesn't work. And then lastly, according to this one, again, I've read so many different, here are the different frames you can choose from. These I think are really good because they're very simple. The Georgetown ones that they use in the Georgetown framework are a little bit more complicated. These are just easier to do in a podcast format. But is the goal frames, we will support your goals. Like that, it's a little bit like the temporal frame, but it's we aren't about us, we aren't about you, we're about the goal. We're about helping you achieve what that...
I mean, that's our line of business, right? I know the kind of the core of, in our business, for our clients,
yeah,
it's our job to make them the hero.
Right.
And so that's the value, or that's the framing that we do.
Right.
Personally.
Well, and a lot of times, specifically with ours, a lot of our clients aren't our client. Either they've been subcontracted or they've been assigned by their boss or their boss's boss. And they're like, whether it's this event or this media product or this campaign, they're not the social media manager. They're Janet from accounting, and they've been told by their boss that this is now your job.
Do this now, yeah.
And so they aren't, it's not their money particularly. They're just going to write an expense report on it. So they don't, the value frame matters a little bit.
And you need to hit the number, but it's not an emotional choice.
Right. And I mean, their boss isn't listening to the marketing. They're going to come in with, they're doing RFP. They have 3 different things. The value one's not going to work for anyone. And if they can say, this one's more expensive, but I like it more, most people in the large government and the large corporation space, that's just a check mark. That's not going to be. The time saving, maybe, but not really big for us. Again, I don't know your business, those who are listening. But we get someone who has been assigned this task, and their whole purpose is to look good, right, and have it, whatever it is, succeed. Which is why you've also heard me say this to over half the clients that have come in is like, look, the thing that I want everyone to remember is that I don't work for you, and I don't work for your boss, and I don't work for myself. I work for your show. I work for your campaign. I'm going to do everything to make that work. Because if I crush the thing you're here about, you look good, I look good, everyone wins. If I work for your agenda, that could suffer. If I work for my agenda, that could suffer. If I work for your boss's agenda, look, you came to me about X, whether sometimes it's an event, sometimes it's a campaign, sometimes it's a video. If I work for the video, if the video is my boss and everything's about making the video look good, then everybody wins. We take very heavily the goals frame of we will crush the goal. Again, if you go to our website or the Release the Creative website, the slogan that I have featured right now, it's been our slogan for a while, but it's we don't produce videos, we use videos to produce results. Like, it's about goals.
We've got we just signed a big contract for an event in September, and I had a Zoom meeting with the client 2 weeks ago, and he told me, he said it's down to 2 companies, yours and Company B, who I don't know who it was.
Yeah.
But that's how he ended the meeting. He said, well, thanks, this sounds great, but I have to make a decision. I've got two companies I'm comparing. And the way I ended that call was I said that I know you have a choice to make. I said, if there's anything while you're comparing, if there's anything that feels like it's missing, call me back, because I'm not here to make me happy. I'm here to make your event make you happy.
Right.
I said, that's what I'm here for. And he said, I really appreciate that. And we got the contract. And I don't know if it was because of that line, but it couldn't have hurt, I guess.
Another great example that we know she ended up coming back and telling us it was because we said this is a year ago, kind of at the begin to middle end of the pandemic, we had someone come in and wanted us to do a web streaming event much like this one.
2020 summer, yeah.
She came in 2020 summer, and again, it was between A and B, and everything we said we could do, they said they could do, and they had a bigger facility than us. They had more expensive equipment. They had nicer everything. But the line that they absolutely told us was the thing, is I said, she'd ask a question. I was like, you know what? I don't know how to do that, but I absolutely can learn. I was like,
we'll find out.
It is
and get back to you.
It is absolutely possible. What you're doing isn't done very often. What you're trying to do, to my knowledge, has never been done before. I can absolutely figure it out, but to tell you how I'm going to do it right now, I can't. I'm going to tell you.
This is new.
And she came back and said the other guy kept giving her all these, she could tell, sort of false answers of like, yeah, I could totally do it, and that she really liked the framing of that. We just straight up told her, what you're trying to do isn't done. There isn't a solution for it. We can find one. We can make it work. But the frame was the goal. Your goal will be achieved. You will pull off everything you're saying. But the fact that we admitted that it was new and it was a problem we were going to solve, and his was, oh, yeah, no problem. And it felt like she knew what she was asking was new and different, and he acted like it wasn't. And because he was trying to be a value frame, like, yeah, I'll do this, I'll be great, because he was framing as super competent, which is good, like he was framing as super confident, competent, super confident, super accomplished, and all the tools necessary. But the frame that we had was, your goals are important, they've never been done before, and we're going to figure out how to accomplish your goals, not just give you some turnkey solution. And they told us that's why we got it, even though we were the smaller of the two entities. And that was about the framing of, we are taking your goals seriously, not just your list of requirements.
Yeah, and some of that's, there's a difference between rote, like going to McDonald's, I want the same hamburger every time, versus I need a problem solved. And like the kind of company you go to for the different things.
Right.
When you go to McDonald's, you want them to say, we know how to make a hamburger.
Right.
Like, we'd be a little concerned if they said, well, we'll figure it out.
I'll figure out how to make a Big Mac. No,
when you come to a company like ours, the whole point is we're going to figure it out, because if we already knew how to do it, you wouldn't need us.
Right. No, and like I said at the very top of this, when we were talking about this new system that we've had no major hiccups today, is that there are a lot of actually really cool turnkey internet-based subscription model that do 80% of what we've built here. And we talked about it, should we just invest in some of these turnkey systems? And the answer was no. We ended up kind of rebuilding it from the ground up in a hardware solution. And the reason being is those 80% solutions that were awesome and wonderful and turnkey and user-friendly, they're 80% solutions, and they limit so quickly, they're software-based, and if you call them and say, I want to do XYZ, they go, oh, I'm sorry, we can't do that.
Yeah, that client we were talking about from last year where we said we'd figure it out, we had like 5 months to work on that project.
Right.
And one of the first things we tried, she said, oh, well, it needs to be modified like this. And the first solution we found, we called them and said it needs to be modified like this. And they said, no.
They said, we're like, we had given them a fair amount of money, and we're like, well, I mean, can you refund us? They're like, no, that is not something that we offer. It's like, well, it's simple. They're like, no, this is a software-based solution that is not in the software. We can't help you.
So we lost our deposit with them because we said, well, if it's not going to work, we found another solution that did work, and we ate the cost on the deposit because that was a exploratory thing.
It was exploratory.
But we weren't going to give the client the thing that didn't do the job she needed.
And for the record, for that company that I'll never work with again, they had claimed that they could solve all the problems. It was just the way they wanted to solve it was vastly inadequate. It wasn't going to actually be a solution. They weren't lying when they said they could do it, but the way they were doing it was very, very chintzy, turnkey, and not acceptable to either our client or their end user. So it's, back to trying to stay on task with the framing, is what she wanted was someone who could do this new task and this new kind of impossible thing, which wasn't impossible, but she had gone to a bunch of different companies and everyone said, I'm sorry, we don't do that. She went to us and this other one of our competitors, and they framed it as like, no big deal, we got you, we handle this stuff all the time. And our frame was, no big deal, we got you, this has never been done before and we can figure out how. And the fact that they framed it as turnkey, when she knew that it wasn't from all of the other solutions, she knew it wasn't from us, it lost them their confidence, lost them the business, because she took it as arrogance.
Last week's podcast, if you haven't looked it up, was The Power of No. I guess this week's is The Power of I Don't Know.
Yeah, no, it really is. People, I mean, and we have a lot of people, and I'm even one of them, will say, hey, just say yes and figure it out later, sort of. Like, that's not... But knowing your limitations, advertising your limitations, and advertising your competencies is huge. Like, and if someone comes to you and says, I need X, being confident in your ability to figure it out, but acknowledging, hey, this is new, I'm going to need a few days, weeks, months to figure this out. If anything, that bolsters massive confidence with clients, with customers, with partnerships. Like, hey, they're going to work this out. I mean, then you have to work it out. But like, it's an important thing to understand that saying no is good if it violates your brand, and saying I don't know when you don't know, but being reassuring that you can figure it out, because these are all the loosest possibles of framing. It's just important to understand not just your brand position. Like I said, there was this kind of Mad Libs, but just because I really do want to kind of keep it back to, I don't want to just, especially because I want to narrow it back down to, your frame needs to be one of exclusion, back to that power of no. It needs to be one of, say no to the things that aren't your core competency. Say I don't know to the things that you don't know, but mostly don't try to pin you against your competitor. Well, we are better in this way, and this way. That's nice. You'll be on a lot of websites and it'll be like, our competitor, this check mark, our competitor, us, these check marks. And those are great. And there will be times that's necessary. But what can you do instead of arguing over price and arguing over service and arguing, what can you do to set the frame that excludes them entirely from the conversation? It is a cognitive trick. It's, what can you do if you are Target, not to compare Target to Walmart, but have people that go to Target understand that Walmart really wasn't an option for you. Right. It was outside of the frame. It didn't exist in a world that you wanted to be in. And I use Target and Walmart a lot because it's something that just most Americans have been to both.
Experienced, yeah.
And they feel it. You can walk in and get it. Same thing, you walk into JCPenney's versus Nordstrom, or JCPenney versus Macy's or Lord & Taylor, there's often an emotional difference.
Stores that size, they make their own frame.
They build their own frame. Despite they're all just the good old department stores, good old general store. You can get bed sheets and shirts and suits at all of them. Yeah. But they've established, they're not arguing value almost ever. They're not arguing price or time. Usually it's a brand affinity. It's a frame which is to the exclusion of their competitor, not the competition. And that's where you want to be. And if you have questions on like your specific, I'm trying to be as general as possible because I know some of our listeners and I know kind of the gamut that they run. If you have questions on how to reframe your company, please just reach out to me. I'd love to talk about it because this is by far one of my favorite things to do.
You can see we've just filled an hour talking about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, we are. Yes, we are coming up on our hour. So again, if the next time you look at a painting or a picture and you're looking at the frame, ask yourself, how does the frame serve the picture? How does the mat serve the picture? How does the frame serve the rest of the room? How does, the receptionist at your doctor, your dentist, your chiropractor, how does that framing of that physical space affect your experience? And understand that even though that is something physical that you can see and tactile and touch and understand, your brain is doing that with concepts all the time. And your brain has a very, very hard time conceptualizing and putting things unincorporated, disassociated information and making it actionable. So what it does is it either actually ignores it or it quickly encapsulates it and creates a logic around it. So the thing to do is, again, Ford F-150, it's not 22 miles per gallon because that puts you against everyone else that does better than that. Best in class. Now, anyone that's better than you doesn't count because they're in a different race. DiGiorno, it was more expensive by almost double, but it was half the price of delivery. So they made sure it's not delivery, it's DiGiorno. Our guy, with us, it wasn't that we were cheaper. We were not. It wasn't that we were. It wasn't that we were better. We were not. It was that we acknowledged up front. It was like, hey, this is a problem. This is a new problem, and we're your guys to solve it. Whereas his frame was, you have nothing to worry about. But she was worried. And she didn't want to not be worried. She wanted to know that someone was going to handle the problem. And so putting frames, understanding how you are putting yourself against your competition, is it competitive or is it framing them out? Those are 3 examples of framing out your competition. We didn't say we were better than him. We didn't say we were. We said we're here to be your stewards through this problem, not just rest your pretty head, it's fine.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, that wouldn't have been the frame they reacted to, but that was with her. So that's kind of my 2 cents on framing for today.
Lots to think about. Go ahead and tell people where to find us and where to come back next week.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing this on LinkedIn on Monday mornings, Mondays at about lunch. We're at YouTube at Release the Creative, releasecreative.com, as well as glassrivermedia.com, as well as Facebook, Glass River Media, and Facebook Release the Creative, as well as just hit us up at Kirk at glassrivermedia.com if you have questions, and we'd love to answer any of that.
We will see you next week.
I do. As well as just hit us up at Kirk at glassrivermedia.com if you have questions.